Okay, welcome back to the Brown Paint podcast. Today I have Jagesh Panchal and Devian Panchal. They're both brothers. They're actually twins. Jagesh Panchal is the founder of Shakti Mental Health Melbourne, a platform which aims to break the stigma associated with mental health within the South Asian community. Devian Panchal is a full-time insurance consultant, co-founder of progressive Facebook page titled The Brown Come Up, discussing all issues that affect the South Asian diaspora in Melbourne and abroad. Check out their new website that just launched, www.shaktimentalhealth.com. Shakti is spelled S-H-A-K-T-I. And on their website, they even have merchandise, their new hoodies and t-shirts. Also check out their Facebook page, The Brown Come Up, and Instagram at Shakti MH Melbourne. Welcome, guys, to Brown Paint. I'm so happy and excited to have you guys here.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Super excited.
Why and how was Shakti created?
Yeah, so I'll jump into it. So
Yeah.
Shakti Mental Health, I started it in May 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much where I started it because there wasn't really a platform here that discusses mental health within the South Asian community.
Yeah.
And I saw platforms in the United States, in the UK, North America, that were discussing this, and they have such a prevalent South Asian community over there. And thought about it and was pretty much like, well, they've got a big following over there with South Asians, first, second generation diaspora, and they've got the same issues with mental health, depression, anxiety that are discussed quite freely and openly. Why isn't there a space in Australia that's discussing the same thing as well? So that was really the creativeness behind Shakti, to create a space here where South Asians can also discuss mental health in a safe space.
Yeah, that's such a great point too. You're right. There isn't much for just brown people in Australia here in general. So that's amazing that you created that. And also I want to talk about Brown Come Up, because this is the first time I'm hearing about this. This is the first time I'm meeting you, Devian. So what is that about? Is that similar to Shakti, or?
So it's similar. It's similar in the respect that we talk about the same kind of relevant issues and topics that relate to brown people going through trauma or adversity in any situation. Really, Jagesh introduced me to these two other beautiful people. Their name is Mahek Sheikh and Muftiz. Together, we just sat down and we kind of just came up with the idea that, sure, we have a page called Subtle Curry Traits, but
oh my God, is that your page?
No. Page.
I was like super fangirling there for a second. That it was so.
What I'm saying is, brown people over the world have that page, but then
that's right.
That page is just about like bands and lows and like having fun at memes. The group Brown Come Up, we initially created because we wanted to get brown change makers, influencers, and people that want to make a difference to our own culture in Melbourne, really getting together and sharing their own ideas and talking about relatable issues that affect us as South Asians in Melbourne. So in this group, we have dancers, we have creative artists, we have like kind of creative music directors, people involved in politics, people involved in their own social and cultural mental health. It's just a big conglomerate. I think we got about just under 200 members at the moment.
Wow.
It's just a good, reliable Facebook group of a relatable brown community here. And we just speak about things that affect us in Melbourne.
That's amazing. I want to join. Oh my goodness. And how long has this been around, the Brown Come Up page?
How long has it been around for, Jay?
Only like March this year. So we had like
that's nuts.
Which is really cool. So we kind of have like,
congrats.
We can only do one event. Yeah, thank you.
We have some screening questions that you're gonna have to pass. So it's very strict criteria. I'm kidding.
Yeah, we had like event in person. Like we had a picnic in like May.
This is what you were telling me about. I didn't know it was your brother's page. That's cool. Yeah.
Kind of like a launch thing where like everyone got together and we would kind of like discuss some questions that was really good. About, what does it mean to be South Asian? What do you think about being a diaspora in Australia? What are some things you want to change? And it was really cool because we like the facilitators would just like ask questions and everyone just went with it. People like were talking over each other. It's like, oh, can I say this? And it was like, oh, this is really cool. And it was
Oh
cool
my
because me,
goodness.
yeah, people were like, oh, I know you through Instagram, but I've never met you in person. When people were like, cool, we'll connect after this and like we'll collab and stuff,
That's
which is really, and that's
amazing.
what we wanted. And like it sucks because of
Oh
Corona.
my goodness.
We haven't really been able to do any in-person things, but we've been like doing Zoom discussions. We're going to try and do, one of the other things we're doing soon is kind of like a South Asian like mental health project where we're trying to do like an intergenerational thing, get some discussions going
I
over Zoom.
love that. With
Yeah,
parents?
so
So kids
so
and
we've
parents?
got, yeah, so we've got like 3 age groups.
Wow.
So
That's
we want to do
nuts.
like yeah, like a 17 to 29, then like a 30 to like 49, then a 50 plus, and kind of have like, we're in the middle of trying to organize like intergenerational chats. So yeah, those are like some of the things, but a lot of them are like, they go beyond mental health and they go beyond, you know, just, you know, trying to find your footing and just topics that South Asians within Australia want to address, which is really cool.
Oh my goodness, you two. This makes me so happy. You have no idea. Like the amount of brown empowerment or social change, cultural change pages that are popping up, like this year especially, it's ridiculous. It's really amazing. Cool. I'm so happy to be a part of this community because it's, I don't know about you guys if you relate to this, but growing up brown in Australia, I don't know, I just felt super like the black sheep of the community. And yeah, it's like it makes me feel so emotional to know that there are so many other people that think the way I do, and I wish I had people like you growing up. Like imagine if, you know, there's this next generation, even the kids that are teens right now, and they have these beautiful resources like Shakti Melbourne and Brown Paint and all of the other amazing pages. Their experience is going to be so much different. Like they have so much help around them. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
That's the thing as well. Like at the end of the day, like when I was in primary school, there wasn't a lot of brown kids in my very white area where we grew up in Cheltenham, which is like Frankston side of town. So, and you know, when we were growing up and bringing our lunches to school, you know, sometimes we would, you know, it was very common we would have like rice, maybe some dal left over in our lunch boxes, and then other kids would see that and be like, what the hell are you eating, you know? So at the end of the day, we don't want kids in our position to grow up feeling that same kind of, am I meant to be brown? There's so many other like different colored, there's so many other white people around me. Is brown a thing that I want to be? We're kind of really trying to let kids know, you know, it's something that you can be proud of. Your own culture, you know, your own South Asian like abilities is something that you should be proud of, even especially at a younger age.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. Yeah, thank you for just like being powerhouses and having the drive to like, because I know you both work full-time jobs and you're doing this, like just incredible. Can we talk just a bit about your personal mental health journeys, if you have anything to share on that, and what it was like, you know, especially with South Asian culture, that kind of intersection between mental health and South Asian culture?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I can definitely go into that. I mean, in around about the time between, say, 2015, late 2015, 2016, I myself was feeling really down. I, you know, wasn't doing the best at university, was getting out of bad relationships. Things were really all over the place. And it really started off as small things, as just like staying up late, not really having an incentive to wake up in the morning, not really having the willpower to go out and see friends or socialize, or even remembering to eat meals. And more so, it was just this feeling of being down on myself and this feeling of having like voices or demons in the back of my head saying that this is all you're going to achieve, this is what your limit is. More and more so that when people started to be like, oh, you should just talk to people and socialize, these small things really weren't starting to work. And it's only when it got to the point where my friends could say to me that we've experienced a change in your behavior. You're very unsociable, you know, you're spending time with the wrong people, you're doing X, Y, and Z just to give yourself some sort of a cheap thrill rather than combating your own kind of demons. And it was only at that point that I went to go out and seek my own professional or mental health. It was a bit of a scary journey because I didn't really know what I was getting into. But it really hit me when I actually sat down with that psychiatrist at the time, and they said, these symptoms of a lack of sleep, of a lack of appetite, of a lack of general willingness to wake up and start your day is something that may lead to, it's what's called dysthymia, or it's what's called persistent depressive disorder, or PDD, as it's defined by. And it's defined as a short or long-term basis of kind of self-loathing or just unwillingness to live and start your day. It was only when I was given that kind of diagnosis that I realized, like, this is something that I'm going to have to combat, and it's something that I'm going to have to get up in myself in order to combat this kind of journey. It's not something that I can just be like, oh, it'll take care of itself, it'll take care of itself. When you actually have a mental professional tell you that this is what you're suffering from, and these are the steps you're going to have to take, only then I realized how real it was in 2016.
Wow. My goodness. And what about you, Jagesh? What was your kind of journey?
Mine's like a little different. I think I can talk about like both of us growing up in like the home environment. And like saying that like the environment we grew up with was always like quite supportive with parents and that. But there was times where like parents did fight a lot, and it was like shouting, fighting, like back and forth against each other. And it sucked because that happened like, I don't know, once a year or so. And that like you don't know how to deal with it as a kid.
Yeah, so, those are pretty big issues for such little people, right? Like that's a huge thing. Yeah.
Legit. Like when I've talked to other friends as well, who are like South Asian and non-South Asian, they've got similar experiences where like parents will fight. It's a thing. And then as a child, you kind of don't know what to do to like kind of deal with it. And it's only when you're older you wish you kind of had resources or like support around you, or ways you can talk to your parents about what's kind of going on and like what can we do as a family to really resolve this, because communication wasn't really there. And it was a factor growing up, and like Devian can talk about this as well, like communication is like with parents it sucks sometimes.
Especially in this culture. It's almost non-existent sometimes.
It's non-existent. So it's only when you're older you can only like sit down and have those chats with your parents. I think that was my experience. You know, when I was older, you can only sit down and have those chats with your parents about like kind of what's going on and like what can we do to communicate together so this doesn't kind of keep happening.
Wow. And what do you feel like both of you being twins actually helped, or what was that like, being twins? Like having someone to...
For sure. For sure, that definitely helped. I mean, growing up at home, like Jagesh was my best friend at home. We more or less did everything. Spoke about, a lot of things together. And, like the same thing my parents would get mad at me for, they get mad at him for, it was like, who did I tell to put the garbage out last night? Oh, Dev? Oh, wait, he's not around, but Jagesh is the next closest son, so I'm going to yell at him instead. So it would be a lot of stuff like that. So I think having twins, having another twin in definitely that kind of household was a big support system growing up.
Yeah, that's lovely. And Jagesh, I know you work in mental health. Would you be able to like kind of tell us a bit more about your job?
Yeah, sure. So my day job, or so I work in youth support. So I used to work for Front Yard, which is youth homelessness and disadvantage, mainly with housing. And now I work with Launch Housing, which is also within youth supported accommodation. And even with that, within the youth field, like mental health is I feel it's like an underrated thing, where a lot of the times when we talk about homelessness and disadvantage, a lot of the reasons are for mental health reasons. It really stops or blocks the young person from getting ahead.
Wow.
And it sucks that a lot of employers and a lot of people don't take it seriously sometimes. Where they'll say like, oh yeah, mental health, like, oh, why can't you come to work, or like why is that stopping you from studying or anything like that. But it's really good to see there's more support and advocacy for that, and we're seeing like fast food chains and big organizations actually taking it into account. So when a young person should have the comfortability to ring their employer and say, I need to take a mental health day because this is affecting me. Yeah, and it's really good that that some employers are actually taking that on board.
That's so amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, mental health is definitely a big thing when it comes to homelessness. And, really attaching to independent living. So it's definitely something that everyone really has to take account of.
Mental health days are so interesting because I'm like, I know that in my work they'd call BS if they were like, oh, mental health day, like you just don't want to work because you want to maybe go out with your friends. Yeah, I know. But so important, like incredibly important. What's your opinion? Oh no, actually, let's rephrase this. What are some stigmas you believe there to be in mental health within brown culture?
I think at the end of the day, I mean, I can use one of my own experiences. Definitely, first of all, we're talking to my parents about, first of all, the kind of issues I was experiencing. And they would just look at you confused and be like, well, you have food in the fridge, you have a roof over your head, we've, given you an education. What else more can we do for you? And it's the stigma of that. The thing is, like, God bless our parents, for sure. They've given us everything that we have to achieve and do the most we can. But it's the stigma of that having those necessities doesn't always mean you're going to function 100% to the best of your ability every day. And it's kind of the stigma of letting your parents know that there is an issue that's going on inside our head. It's not just going to be solved with drinking turmeric lattes or getting more sleep or drinking more water. And I think another stigma is definitely for young people having that conversation with their very conservative, strict brown parents. Because Jagesh and I parents, they've been in here, for like 30 plus years. They've definitely integrated themselves into society. But then there's other parents that have only come from like Mumbai, Colombo, whatever, and they've only been here for maybe 2.5 years. And they don't understand that it's a conversation that their Western kids need to have. So it's a stigma of that kind of brown, conservative, traditional, hardworking mentality that we're really trying to overcome in that situation.
And we're not saying hard work is bad, right? Because hard work is great. It's one of the reasons where like we do so well in Western countries. Like every single brown person you see, they are like whipping degrees out of their butt and like landing all the jobs, taking all the jobs away from the white people, and then the white people are like
these damn hardworking brown people.
And it's like, shut up, we just work hard. But no, I'll actually put this question to Jagesh, seeing as though you work in mental health every day. With actual minority people in mental health. So what are some strategies you could like advise to any young person watching this to actually deal with communicating with their traditional migrant parents?
Yeah, I think one of them would be to look for other role models in the community that you kind of look up to would be a good start. Because even if this could be through like your employers, or you could have a mentor or a older like South Asian that you kind of look up to who kind of gets you as well. And try and like lean on someone else as much as like we want to do stuff by ourselves all the time. Find other people to lean on and look for those connections to support you in your conversation. Another thing, a really good thing could be is to have kind of like a mediator when you do talk to your parents. So someone that your parents know they can get along with, and someone that you get along with as well. This could be like a close uncle, it could be like your older brother or older sibling, or someone within the community where you've got kind of like that respect back and forth. So if things do get out of hand, they can kind of like respond to you as well. Because sometimes they've got, when we talk to parents, we don't always share everything that we want to. And they always ask us too, how's your day? And you could just be like, good. And we never go into detail. But with other people, we go into detail about what happens. So kind of have someone there who you can like bounce ideas back and forth to, and your parents can also talk to as well. Because you just don't want that to become like a toxic argument if it's just you and your parents, and you know that stuff might stir up already when you talk about certain topics.
Okay. Those are some really great tips, like some seriously great tips. I know that I definitely would have benefited from those tips if I had heard them like a couple of years back.
Yeah, same.
But so I'd been posting some tips on brown parenting because I'm about to do a brown parent series myself on my IGTV for Brown Paint. Speaking about,
I thought you were going to be like, I'm about to have a child.
Sorry?
No, because you were going into, I'm about to do some brown parenting. I thought you were going to be like,
oh no. No. Just some like advice on how to kind of communicate with your brown parents. But then, so I've been posting some tips, and some of that actual tips you mentioned. But then I had a few people actually message me and say that these tips are all well and good, but they have like next level parents. They have tiger parents. They're next level strict to the point where they can't even, there's no one even around them that could be a mediator. There's no one. What happens when the parenting crosses a line of being just strict parenting to the point where it's borderline abusive parenting, and there's like, there's just no openness, and the child almost doesn't feel safe at home? What do we do then?
I think, look, that is a tough question. And I think from the top of my head, at the end of the day, if you're a child in that situation, I think it's really best to try and confide in some sort of a close family member who can then kind of mediate that conversation, like Jagesh was saying again.
Okay.
But really, at the end of the day, if it's an abusive situation and that him or her doesn't feel physically or mentally safe, it's a really good idea to kind of that person to go towards their school and talk about those issues if they're comfortable enough, or seek some sort of external help, or be placed in an environment where they do feel safe. But it's hard, you know, it's definitely hard, because parents that have that kind of very strict mentality, they're going to do the most possible to kind of keep that kid in their environment because they think that's what's best for them. They think that they're going to be best for them.
I just want to like add on to that. I think you also got to reach out to your friends as well, even if it's like you can't go visit them. And like coronavirus is a good example of that. Use other apps to just like connect with friends, because you might not be the only kind of like brown kid that's experienced like tiger parenting.
That's
and you
true.
can feed off like your other friends who might have experienced it too. So at least you've got someone else to kind of discuss these things with. So you're not alone in that context as well.
You know what? A brilliant point you just brought up. Actually be open to telling other people about your experience, whether they get it or not, because there is a chance that someone else is going through the same thing. And the thing is, I noticed with brown culture, I don't know, let me know if you guys agree or not, but I think that we've normalized this type of abusive tiger parenting. We've almost made jokes out of it. Like you said, subtle curry traits, Lily Singh, Jehan R, they've made full careers, and they really monetized the crap out of this whole thing of like tiger parenting. But it at some point it's not funny anymore. And I know that, and what's hard about it is we make excuses for our parents, and I understand it because they're our parents and we love them. And we cling on to this idea that they should be these perfect superhero type figures that we see them as when we're still young and like babies. But then the minute they kind of inflict pain upon us, we don't hold them accountable. And I mean, there's a difference between understanding someone's intentions, but the fact of the matter is, like, you can have the best intentions, but still you've traumatized your child. So that's such a great point that you've made. My question is that, do you think that we make excuses for like the older brown generation, and that we've normalized or almost even glorified tiger parenting? Because I do see some aunties and uncles at parties be like, oh, that parent is so strict, they've done such a great job with their child, and that child hasn't like socialized with anyone for the last 5 years, and that's how they got that 99.95.
21 years old.
Yeah, so I think we have to the point where, and this is the thing, this is like kind of going back to mental health. This is like the kind of stigma that we're trying to break. So that shouldn't be normalized, tiger parenting, but it kind of is. You know, to the point where like I think everyone, like a lot of brown people will kind of have like an uncle or auntie that they know that is like kind of that, you know, that auntie that, yeah. And that's kind of like the mold that we need to break, where we need to say that no, like we need to have these intergenerational conversations. And if you bring up like mental health, if you bring up careers, if you bring up any topic, we need to be able to have that comfortability to discuss that with the older generation, and for them to take our points on board and be like, you know, I don't want to pursue what you told me to, or I want to discuss these issues which you might not agree with.
Yeah. And how would you actually, with these conversations you're talking about, talking to the older generation and trying to introduce the concept of mental health to them? Now, I know that that can be a really tough thing, and especially when parents are very like reluctant to hear that kind of thing, especially when you're being told things that you should be thinking or you should be doing from someone that's younger than you. There's this whole kind of thing of, you know, you need to respect your elders. How do you go about communicating that message to South Asian parents or the older generation?
I think really like a lot of South Asians respond to, I, I don't want to say like incentives, but they respond to positive traits. So for example, if you go to a South Asian parent and for example, you tell them, if your son Raj's mental health doesn't, if your son Raj's mental health isn't brought to light, then he can go down X, Y, and Z path. But on the other hand, if you speak about your son Raj's mental health and talk to him about what you can further do for him to kind of bring him along that journey, he'll go to aspire to X, Y, and Z path. So I think it's really about speaking to these parents about the benefits of really just trying to have that conversation with their son or their daughter, or anyone else in their family. It's not saying like you have to have this and that's it, but it's kind of, you know, almost like a persuasive essay on what the benefits of these conversations are and what the greater outcomes of these conversations are.
That's actually a really good point, because I know that if you ever bring up the word burnout with a brown parent, they'll be like, oh yes, you can go to that art class, you can go see your friends for a day. Like, we don't want you to burn out. We don't want you to get bad grades and ruin your life.
Is this going to help you spend more time in your studies? Oh, okay. It's okay.
And it's a bit sad, but I mean, any way that, you know, anything that's going to help your life, that's just do it, you know, like use the word burnout. And also that what you brought up earlier about getting teachers involved, that's always a great idea, because then the teachers can say, I see that her grades are dropping and I think it's because she needs to, you know, socialize and have a mental health break. It's always a great idea.
Tell a brown parent their daughter or son's grades are dropping, they'll 9 times out of 10, they'll probably do something about it. They'll hopefully it's not, you know, another 3 hours of tutoring, but hopefully it's a more positive kind of environment.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Did you guys do tutoring growing up at all? Just out of curiosity?
Man, what did mom and dad send us to? They sent us to this like academy thing every Saturday. And then we went
to much of it.
I did like Gujarati class as well.
Yeah, that was like, we did like Gujarati class, so that's not much tutoring. Like I know like other friends, like Kumon is like a pretty common thing.
Yes, Kumon. I remember Kumon.
Yeah. So like, yeah, a lot of like kids have experience with that. And now like those kids, some of them are like the Kumon tutors too.
Yeah, that's
so I know a lot of friends, who are like Kumon tutors from the South Asian community. Which is also like really cool, because you're using that experience that you had, and now you can like, teach it better to young brown kids like coming up as well.
It's so funny though how it's such an industry just purely amongst the Asian and South Asian community.
It's such a thing.
Like you'd never see a white person at Kumon ever, but there's always that one white kid that everyone's just like, why are you here? But they're always like crazy smart, so it's okay. How was your experience? I know this isn't one of the questions I had you guys prepare for, but we're just like riffing here. How did you guys feel in terms of like the atmosphere at tuition? Because I know that I had a horrible mental health time at tuition. I had my tutor, because this special school that I went to, you had to like have an interview before you were accepted in. So I went for my interview. And this tutor, oh my goodness, he scared the living days. Oh, this was this was the so I always did tuition, but this was like a special year 11 and 12 one. So this was like maybe when I was 16. So this was like preparation for VCEs. He actually like talked to my dad and made me stop dance for like a whole 2 years. And because of that, I got into the wrong crowd. I ended up like partying and like doing bad stuff. And my dad to this day really regrets it. He was like, it's because I listened to that damn tutor and took you out of dance that you got involved in the wrong crowd and you know, snuck out and did all the bad things. But yeah, no, he made me cry multiple times. He made me feel so dumb because I wasn't the top of the class. Like, they were like crazy smart, by the way. So like I was still smart, but not that smart. So he made me feel so stupid and so dumb. And there was horrible competitiveness surrounding the entire like school and just tuition in general, like those type of tuition schools. So I just want to get your opinion on that.
I think like I don't have much like experience of being like in tuition, but I think my advice to younger kids who are experiencing that is try to like, you know, let your parents know that they can't dissuade you from keeping your creative side and your academic side. You need to have that good balance, and you need to you know, tell the argument with them that I need to keep like my social standings as well, whether that be dance, whether it be sport, whether it be like music as well. Make sure they know for you to take time out for yourself, that your creativeness is kind of like key to your success as well.
So true.
And it plays on your mental health in such a positive way too. Because I know like friends at the moment that like same thing, like their parents took them out of their creative niche that they wanted to do, whether that be dance, whether it be sport, and then was just like fully academic focused. So parents need to know as well that they need to keep that creativity flowing in the child, flowing in like the adolescent teen for them to succeed.
I feel like brown parents are very results focused. Like they and creativity is something that's completely not tangible at all. It's an emotional, it's an intuitive thing, it's a mental health thing, it's everything that you can't see. So it's like most parents think, there's no score, there's no like results, there's no like way to say, hey, look at me, I'm more creative now, or I don't know like what the end result would be. But I find that brown parents, like a lot of brown parents I've seen, you know, their kids aren't allowed to do footy or soccer or art class or dance. They just only can do tuition. And it's horrible because it's like they don't see any value in it. But you're right, it's so important. And I find that the common denominator with brown parents is this whole academic pressure thing and the whole thing of like, you need to, where do you think that comes from?
I think it really, like for the tuition stuff you were talking about, then results stuff you were talking about, the brown parents are going to have the mentality of like, well, if my kid's not like number one at basketball, then why am I paying like $300 a month for uniforms and like he's coaching and X, Y, and Z if he's not going to be number one at it, when I can just put this money into his like college tuition or his, you know, university or fee for that. So,
but at the same time, I would say, even when that kid is number one at basketball, after they turn 18, they aren't allowed to have a career in basketball, because that was me. That was me. I was exceptionally bright in the arts, like to the point where my teachers were constantly telling me, my parents, like, what are you doing? This girl needs to be in a performing arts school. This is what she's supposed to do. Why are you pushing her into science? Like, this is serious. Like, it's not just some hobby. Like, she could genuinely do this. But no, the minute it becomes not a hobby, you can't do anything other than that academic thing. And the same thing with the Asians. You see a lot of Asians in, you know, doing piano. They're incredibly great at being piano, but barely any of them actually go on to, like, a couple do go on to become professional musicians, but barely any of them go on to becoming professional, like, concert pianists, because you know, they're being pressured into being doctors or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's because that skill wasn't nurtured at such a young age, and it wasn't, what's the word for it? It wasn't emphasized.
Yeah, encouraged.
So,
yeah.
But the great thing is younger brown parents, like we have multiple cousins that have kids. And the good thing to see is that they're not adopting the same traits that their parents gave to them. They're giving their own children the freedom to learn like whatever languages, their own violin, piano, whatnot. So we have plenty of cousins that it's really good to see that kind of, like, would you call us our second generation over here, maybe, I guess? Yeah. So like that second generation of brown parents, if they're raised in the Western society, you can definitely see that they don't want to bring those same kind of negative feelings that their parents gave to them. And they really want to nurture their kids. It's just going to make for a positive growing environment.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's really where the cycle starts, right? I think that parenting and like, especially when we talk about, you know, mental health and brown parents, this is kind of where all the gunk of brown culture begins. Like the cycle starts with you being born and then all the corruption you kind of accumulate or the trauma you accumulate growing up. No, but it's so true.
You accumulated. Oh, this much. How do you put a monetary value to trauma you've accumulated?
I know, but it's true. Like you kind of do, like, just you build up baggage, like emotional baggage, and then that manifests into all the problems I think we see in brown culture, from like just people not being able to accept their children as who they are, whether they're an artist or they want to be gay or like whatever it is, to like doing a career, like an alternative career, or marrying the person they want to marry, or having sex before marriage, and like even politics to the point of like actual systemic issues within brown countries. I think it all kind of like just stems from parenting, because each generation is an opportunity to change and break those cycles, right? But the problem is it hasn't happened, but it will this next generation, as you were saying.
That's a really good point you bring up.
I love it. Yeah. Speaking of sex, any thoughts on like sexual stigmas within the South Asian community?
Look,
I think there's a lot.
It's not going to happen, not going to change anytime soon. But yeah, Jay, go ahead.
Like on that, like we want to make sure that conversation flows, because like my parents never had this chat with me, like they didn't really do it with Dev.
Me neither.
They don't. I don't know if it's because they feel weird sitting you down and being like, this is but then like, what if we ask them as well? Like, what do they say? And
I asked my parents.
Oh no! What did they say?
How did you bring about that
my mom. Okay, so I found out because I was really into bird watching, and I not that I watched birds.
Okay. I'm just saying.
No. So I got gifted a bird watching book, a bird book or something. Like it was a biology type book about birds, and I was reading it, and there was this like birds mating, and I was like, and up until then, like I'd been taught that babies just magically appear. I don't know, like I knew that they were in the tummy, but I didn't know like what happens or how they're made. But then I read the book, and like it was something about how like the male birds, you know, go something. I'm not gonna say it here, but you know, ... And I was like, oh, what? So that's why like men have this and women have this, and then but I thought I was like to my mom, I was like, oh mom, like I think I know what like how babies are made. And I said, oh, is it when the boy is this and the girl is this touch and then it happens? So I thought they just touch. But so cute. What a cute little like, I don't know, 10-year-old thing to say.
What was your mom's reaction?
And my mom laughed. She just started laughing, and she was just like, she was so shy about it, but she was like laughing, but she didn't want to obviously tell me like the full truth. So she said, that's how babies are made. But that's as far as my sexual education went, besides obviously school, and that's how most kids unfortunately learn about it.
I think and that's the thing, we need to, as like young South Asians, we need to look at our own research and do our own like research on it. And like sex ed in school is one thing, but then there's this whole other thing, and this isn't like, I just want to give like, what's it, asterisks. This isn't all brown boys, but there's this toxic brown boy masculinity.
That was my next question. Yes.
Yeah. That comes with sex and talking about it to the point where it's really bad. It's really toxic, and brown boys, like, they know they're doing it, and they really need to like learn or teach themselves, you know, right from wrong.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it is passed down. A lot of it can be passed down through generations, and a lot of it passed down through like the friends and the groups you hang out with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys, like, they'll watch porn, and they'll get those same traits from what they see and what they watch. But they need to start consuming like ethical and positive influences around sex and sex culture.
Yes.
Yeah. And they really need to see like what's wrong and what's right, and what you're doing with your partner and how you treat women in general. It's really something in South Asian men especially that really needs to change. So that whole culture and that whole like masculine, feminine traits, they really need to like look themselves in the mirror and really make a change in themselves.
I want to ask, let's stick on this sex topic. No, actually men and mental health and men and sex topic for a second. I found that I feel like I've kind of really had a bad rap with brown men in my life, or not even in my life, but like just in general. And I feel like I've very much been a victim to some horrible misogynistic brown men. And I find that there are two types. Oh, well, okay, there are three types. There are like normal, lovely brown men like you two. And then there's like the like horrible, absolute, you know, misogynist, horrible brown men. And then there's like the in-between where you think they're that, but they're actually like, they come around. And I learned this, okay? Because I used to get I used to get ridiculous amount of DMs on Facebook and Instagram, but mostly Facebook. No, seriously. It's a problem. And it's not even white girls. It's mostly brown girls that they target, because it's almost like they have this disbelief that a brown woman can like be sexually empowered, and they're like so like whoa when they see that, because I suppose they come from very traditional backgrounds where, you know, mental health isn't taught, sex isn't taught, nothing's talked about. But there was this one time, this guy, I was on Tinder and I swiped left, he swiped right, and he didn't take no as an answer, so he found me on Facebook somehow and DM'd me. He was very persistent, and so I kind of thought, I had this horrible habit at that time. Me and my friends used to go through my DMs, and we used to like harass these brown men, and we used to like have a good time doing it.
I mean, go for it for sure.
No, I felt bad though. I really did feel bad because it wasn't the nicest thing to do. I do regret it. But this guy, I thought, okay, no, you know, enough is enough. I realized at that point what I was doing was really nasty. And this guy, I won't name his name because we're actually really good friends now. I started talking to him and I was like, tell me why it is that you do this to women and you like portray us in this way. And we were actually able to have a chat about it. And I ended up kind of like, we had a full friendship. And I met him, we hung out, and I ended up like getting him on his first successful date. And he had a relationship with this girl.
Good job.
So I want to say that brown men get a really bad rap, and totally like deservingly, but there are some brown men out there that are just, they're just victims of their circumstance, like this guy.
For sure.
And they just don't know how to communicate with women, and they learn by example, and they've had shit examples. And they just parrot that, but they're actually deep down like really lovely people. They just don't know actually how to talk to women, and that's the problem.
And the thing is, like, examples is a really big point. I mean, for like our generation, for kids that were born from like 90, 93, 95, we grew up watching like some really douchey depictions of like Salman Khan, or like some really like F-boy images of like Shah Rukh Khan and like Govinda. And when we see these people on screen, we're like, oh, this guy's doing X, Y, and Z, and he gets the girl all the time. If we just do that in real life, what's stopping us from kind of getting that brown? Because the thing is, in Bollywood cinema, the hero is projected as trying and trying again, and then getting the brown girl. So,
yes, I've noticed that.
Right,
that makes sense.
right. So young kids, young brown boys, little Akash, little Rajiv, little is gonna be like, I see Salman Khan not taking no for an answer. I'm gonna do the same thing to Priyanka, who's in my engineering 101 class. I'm gonna do the same thing to India, who's at like the Muick ball, you know? So
that
the
makes
thing
sense.
is, not all brown boys are gonna act that same way. And you're 100% right. It is largely due to the fact that the kind of atmosphere or the friends that they grow up with. The thing is, at the end of the day, if you have a supporting environment and supporting friends and good influences, you're going to do better. But brown kids, boys especially, need to be socially aware enough to look at their friends group and be like, is this the kind of people I want to hang out with in 5 years? Is this the kind of people that I want my kids meeting? So brown boys really got to take that responsibility on themselves and ask themselves a question of, I know I can get out of this situation, but am I just being too comfortable? It's really something that they got to bring about themselves in this day and age as well.
It's hard because I feel that our culture doesn't really instill confidence in us, because I think that what you're asking them to do is something that really requires some self-assurance to go against the grain and say, look, that's not okay, and I don't want to be a part of that anymore, and I want to be more like this way, because a lot of the times you'll find yourself being the odd one out, unfortunately. But our culture, I don't know about you if this is just a woman thing, but I find that our culture really, there's this emphasis on being a polite, obedient brown kid, and you don't talk too much, don't express your opinion too much, don't be outspoken, don't talk unless you're spoken to, don't talk to this elderly person in that way, you have to be super respectful, and I find that, I don't know, it's like the undertone to like a lot of brown upbringings, and I find that even for men it might be a really difficult thing for them to speak up or like go against the grain because they don't have confidence. And that's what I find, even the common theme amongst like these brown men that are really creepy and message girls like me in the DMs, there's this lack of confidence. It all comes from insecurity. They don't think that they're enough. And that those are the conversations that I had with this dude. It was all about, it wasn't really about feminism or anything. I think he understood that and he knew what was right deep down, but it was more to do with his own sense of self-worth. Do you think brown men especially have a thing about self-worth that they need to improve upon?
Yeah, I think so. They definitely need to like I said, like before, like look at themselves and really just improve on it, be like just a better person, like be a better role model to like other guys around you, and like be the person that like you want your kids to grow up and be like, yeah, that's a really great person right there. So I think they really and saying that too, like everyone's got something they can improve upon themselves, and sometimes it's not until someone calls us out about it that we realize that. So we kind of sometimes need that friend, or like you yourself said when that guy DM'd you, like a person like yourself, to like call out that behavior and be like, dude, like this is not okay. Because I think before that, that's all the behavior that they know, and until someone calls them out about it, that's when that behavior change kind of starts. So we really need to call out our friends or like other mates that we're seeing and be like, hey, dude, that's not really cool what you did or like what you said. And even if it's like an awkward conversation, like still have it, because if they're really like your friend at the end of the day, they're going to respect your opinion and be like, that's you know true. What that's really cool that someone brought me out on it.
That's so true. This is a perfect segue into men and mental health, so I want to just talk about that, about how any thoughts on how, you know, as a male, it might be harder to kind of access your emotions, or like there's a stigma around men and mental health, and then you add the fact that you're brown on top of that and the whole cultural component. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, like, from someone who's directly experienced this kind of trauma or kind of depression or being at that low points, you keep telling yourself that people don't want to hear about, you know, your own downfalls and grievances. But really, you will feel so much better if you go to your group of friends or your support system and just tell them about how you're feeling. Not one, if they're a real friend, no one is going to turn around and be like, I don't have time for this, like take it somewhere else. If you have a strong support system and you have a real group of friends around you, then they're going to be all for seeing you do better. They want to see you wake up the next morning. They want to see you get a good amount of sleep, eat the right foods and look after yourself and be genuinely the best person you can be. So from a male brown perspective, even if someone isn't asking you, are you okay? Sometimes you really got to lift yourself up and go to your support system and be like, I'm not okay. These are the reasons why. I need a bit of help with it.
Love that. That's awesome. Jagesh, any advice on like to brown men and mental health?
Yeah, I really think that, like Dev said, you need to reach out to your friends group and have those discussions, because you're also going to, at some point, I think, have those discussions with parents as well. So, and using your friends is like a good, kind of like a draft for like when you have that discussion with parents is good. Because you can tell them about like openly, hey, this is going wrong. How do you think I should discuss this with my parents? And I wish, like, growing up, I wish I kind of had this, that when you can say it in like a cultural language as well, like whether that be like Tamil or Gujarati or Hindi, I think it, like, for some brown kids, they can word better what they want to say if they know how to speak in like their mother tongue. And we didn't really have that, so like my Gujarati, like ours it's okay, but
it was very it was like we knew enough to have a conversation, but like speaking about mental health, it would be like broken,
so I think
I cannot even right now.
Like if you can have those discussions with parents and like in your mother tongue would be really cool, but when you're talking about like brown boys, they just need to start the conversation with themselves and have a non-judgmental group that you can go to and feel comfortable in, and have those chats and like really.
You're so right. It's such a chain reaction, isn't it? Like that one kind of alpha male dude in every group that everyone kind of looks up to. If they take that morally high route, like people would be like, whoa. I think all the dudes would, I don't know, just be such a chain reaction.
Because a lot of times, like, it'll just either they won't have the conversation because they might be scared, or they could start it, but then they might get shut down by like one of the other friends. So you're like closing the door on that one friend that might need support, but you're not being there for them.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I actually want to ask you, Jagesh, and we're moving on to like minority mental health topic again. I want to know, are there any challenges specific to minority communities, as in like culturally specific? So we've talked about South Asian culture, but I'm really curious from your perspective as a social worker, if these issues and stigmas within South Asian culture translate into other cultural diasporas, or if they're kind of different and culturally specific.
I think when we go to when we go to find mental health professionals, finding a mental health professional from a cultural background is really tough and it's really hard. So when you're a migrant, like from an Asian background, South Asian, from like a European background, and you want to discuss mental health, sometimes as the patient, you find it more comfortable if there's someone else from your background you can, like a professional you can discuss it with. But then there's a limit to how many professionals are available. So I think that's one of the shared challenges, finding someone from your same cultural background that speaks the same language as you or can discuss the same topic as you to feel comfortable in. So yeah, that's definitely one of them too.
And what are the, like, in terms of specific cultures within Victoria, like minority cultures, would you say that, for example, like different, like I'm really umbrella terming people into these categories, but like the African community versus the South Asian community versus the Chinese community versus like the white community, all these people that you've worked with, are those kind of issues like those cultural issues in mental health, are they different in each
I think,
category, or are they all kind of the same? Like, is there something that African people might go through that we don't go through, and something that we might go through that they don't go through, and vice versa?
I think so, and I think like, yeah, I get what you mean, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if there is. I think there's definitely similarities between all these migrant cultures, that they might have like targeted, they'll probably have targeted individualized experiences of these different things, and it could be the way in which we talk about like depression. That could be different in each culture. So I think, and this is the thing, like it's really good to get a broad basis and speak to different cultures about what mental health means, not just in South Asian cultures, but
that's such a good point.
Yeah, in a multicultural space, because then we've got more discussion, we've got more resources going for that. Because I know like Bev as well has got a lot of friends from both got a lot of friends from different cultures, and the way they might speak about it could be different to the way like I speak about it.
That'd be really interesting to find out what the different quirks of each culture is, like, you know, what each culture's thing is, I guess. The last question that I have to you both, if you guys want to answer, is what do you envision Shakti and or Brown Come Up, the page on Facebook, what do you envision these brands to look like? Like sky's the limit, dream big, what would be the ultimate goal?
I think I can answer for the Brown Come Up, and then you guys can do an answer for Shakti, like what he wants to see it as. So for the Brown Come Up, really, we just want to see it as a group of like collective, relatable South Asian people in Melbourne who kind of use their own experiences, whether it be work or lifestyle, just to help other people with their own projects and opportunities. Really, we just want to see this as a good, positive, progressive group of brown change makers in Melbourne who really put actionable plans into, I guess, making not life necessarily more comfortable, but really combating the issues that affect us as South Asians in Melbourne. Whether it be we want to see more people of our own skin color in political avenues, or we want to see more people of our own skin color in positions of leadership. We really want this group to be something that brown people of any age can come through to seek advice, support, opportunities, personal, mental, and career growth. We really are trying to stray away from just being like a group of brown kids that just like talk shit and things like that. My apologies.
No.
But I think we've really built a great culture of being a group that talks about progressive issues and just doesn't talk about bans. The other day, like in the last week, we've had 17 new member requests, and it was good to hear them that it's good to be part of a community of brown people that really just does talk about issues that affect us in Melbourne, and really give opportunities and spaces to kind of share our own creative platforms and things that we're proud of. Like during lockdown, we were coming up with ideas of how to keep the community involved. And we did cooking challenges where we had people would jump on and we would teach them a dish to make over Zoom. And that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Was it curries?
If one lady did a traditional curry. I
would have loved that. Oh my goodness.
I taught people how to make Japanese chicken katsu. So that's what I did. And
Chef. Wow.
Get ready for the next 2 weeks. We've gotten in touch with this girl who she distributes her own chai and powders across Australia.
Wait, I know her. Hang on, what's her name?
The company's Mix Chai.
Is it Deepika Ratra?
No, it's another one.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Never mind. Yeah, that's probably a lot. Yeah.
Like she's got her own chai brand, so we're gonna get her.
That's so cool.
And teach like, you know, these kids how to make chai. And the other day, one of our members, he's really good at musical and performing arts. That guy had a live gig, and a bunch of people from the community just tuned into their live gigs. So we are really, really big on supporting our own members in the community, because a lot of the time, sure, you can share out your friends, you know, a bunch of times over, but people in this community generally want to see you do better, and generally want to see you be the best person you can be. So
that's so amazing.
I know that was a really big answer to your question, but we just want to see BCU as a comfortable, progressive community. Hopefully it's going to continue. We're really excited.
I love it. I love it. Any words, Jagesh?
Yeah, I think just on BCU as well, like we've got our mental health project that's coming, which is going to be really cool. We're hopefully going to have like if anyone's saying like red table talks, we want to try and do, we want to try and do like South Asian men mental health talk.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Love really that. Cool. I think men get a really bad rap, and they deserve a bit more of attention because they have a hard time too in different ways, but they do, you know?
And just on the Shakti, so we've got like, we just launched our website, which is really cool. So we just want to keep like pushing the merch that we're doing. We've got a few perspectives coming out for like October Mental Health Month. So that's going to really be discussing the question of like, what does mental health mean to you? So that's going to go from October into November as well. And then next year, we want to start doing some more work in like the physical space.
Awesome.
So a lot of stuff is on social media, but we're hoping if some of our projects get approved, that we're going to do hopefully a South Asian cultural mental health like platform chat where we've got like individuals or members from the community come together in like a physical space and discuss mental health in the South Asian community. So
love that.
Yeah, so next year hopefully it's going to be big, and we've got some plans that we're going to roll out through.
That's so exciting. I can't wait to see all your events and come and like, oh my goodness, so exciting that you guys have all these huge plans. My last question is actually, since this was about mental health, do you have any resources for anyone listening regarding mental health?
Yeah, so I just want to shout out a couple really quickly. One is the mental health toolkit. You can find this if you just type in the mental health toolkit into Google. It's run by one of our good friends, Niharika, who works for Headspace as well. And it's really cool because it's a cultural mental health toolkit where it's got resources for minorities within the Australian community. For mental health resources. And another one.
Really specific resources for minority groups.
No way. Why didn't people know about this? Like, why didn't I know?
It sucks. I'll put the link here so you can check it out too. And another one I just want to quickly shout out is called Your Local Educator, which is run by one of our friends from BCU, Shakti Bali. So she started kind of an advocacy platform. And what it does is sparks awareness on social issues for young Australians. And it's not just mental health, it's within like academia, it's within creativity. So definitely check out those two for starters.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And so just to wrap this up, just to remind you all listening, they have launched their own website. So that's www.shaktimentalhealth.com. And the beautiful hoodies they're wearing are actually a part of their merch collection. So you guys can go buy your own hoodies. I love that pink one. It's so pretty. I want to get my own.
Most popular.
Yeah, I can imagine. I love it. And then also make sure you find them on their Facebook page, Brown Come Up, and Instagram at Shakti Melbourne. So thank you so much, Jagesh and Devian, for being here today.
Nice. Thank you, Adia.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And this is a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to tune into your other podcasts now that I know you exist.
Awesome.
I can't wait to see what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm so happy. Awesome.